this is when I got arrested. So the cops, the DEA, they basically like they take your cards away, or I had like I don't know credit cards, bank accounts, all this stuff. They shut
Freeze
that
all
down,
that shit, yeah.
and they passed me back my wallet, and in my wallet I had a picture of my son, and then I had a little zipper on the side, and in that little zipper I stuck my finger in, and there was like 10 pieces of paper, and it's like a strip of acid, and so I pop it out, and I remember my co-defendants, my drivers were in different cells, and I'm like, yo, they gave me some acid, and we used to call it funny papers. So I'm like, yo, they gave me the funny papers, and they're like, yo, pass me one. I'm like, fuck that. And so I took all 10, and I was tripping balls.
You're listening to Bought with Nelly.
Welcome back to another edition of the Board with Nelly podcast. Today, I'm joined by Coss Marte, who is a former multi-millionaire drug kingpin turned legitimate millionaire businessman. In 2009, he was sent to prison where he served a 4-year sentence and came out with a brilliant business plan called Conbody. It's a prison-style bootcamp that hires formerly incarcerated individuals to teach fitness classes. You might have also seen him on countless media outlets, from Ellen to Vice to multiple TED Talks. My guy, welcome to the podcast. It feels like you've lived two lives. You're only 36 in your mid-30s?
Yep. Thanks, Nelly. I appreciate you having me here.
Dude, how does it feel to, like, when I tell you your life story, does it feel like there's two different human beings?
It feels like I've lived a long time, but I feel like my life is a movie every single day. There's something happening every day, and it's pretty crazy.
Why haven't we seen a movie yet, now that you bring that up?
Yeah, I mean, there's something in the works. I'm working with a 4-time Academy Award director on a documentary. She's been following me around for the last 8 years.
I thought this was related to the Vice thing, but it's not. This is something completely different.
Yeah, something completely different. This is a 6-part docu-series, basically like tracking my story and my journey. I'm starting my own business, coming out of prison, and then seeing if it fails or if it works. And so she basically like saw me from hustling, trying to get people on the train station, in the park, and just making things happen. And it's worked out so far.
Man, that's wild. Like, that commitment for that kind of movie. How long? You said 8 years?
8 years, yeah. It's been crazy. I've been running the company for 9.5 years now. So,
okay, so give people a little bit more about your backstory. Like, let me ask you, what your life was like growing up, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New York City, where it was, very, very heavily drug infested neighborhood, where I grew up at, and I got involved with drugs at a very early age. I started like dealing and smoking at 11, dealing at 13. And then from there, I just went down a spiral, in and out of jail, probation, parole.
Wait, sorry to interrupt you. Were you born in New York or no?
Yeah,
You were born in New York?
Yeah. My mom immigrated from the Dominican Republic when she was pregnant with me. So,
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up here. And firstborn generation in the family, we lived in a couch, under the poverty line we lived. And I was just I don't know. I saw success as the guys that were on the corner with the big chains, cars, people with money. Like,
right.
I thought that was real success. I didn't see anybody go to college and come back. I've heard stories of people going and then doing their own thing, but never coming back. So I never saw that.
Well, most people can't afford it, right? I mean, that's the biggest problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see a future. I didn't see everybody that, I went to a school that I went to a high school where it's about almost 90% of the students dropped out in my class, my graduating class. I was one of, there was 67 graduates, and about over 500 students in my graduating class, and only 67 of us graduated. I went to a school where it was the highest dropout rate, and I graduated because solely I went to class to sell weed in
Right.
class. So
Right.
everybody else just went over there, bought weed off of me, and then went back out to the streets and cut school and did whatever the hell they wanted. And it was just that was the reality, and that was the dream that I had of becoming rich. And at 19, I was making over $2 million a year due to me starting this whole delivery service. I had multiple drivers. I had a whole crazy dispatching system, texting. This is before we had touchscreen phones, when you had a text with pressing 2 and then 3,
Right.
and to spell a whole word, it took you like 5 minutes. But I had official texters on staff, that people that worked the phones doing that. So it was a
How do you?
crazy.
Sorry to interrupt. How do you get to that level? I mean, we can't just go from I started dealing in 2 million at 19. Like what's the build up to that? How are you getting you're getting a little taste of that life in your like mid teens, and then you're liking the money that's coming in, and then how do we go from there?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it was like me and my partner back then, Joey. We just nonstop hustled. We basically started on the street corner, and the neighborhood started really getting gentrified. And this is like after 9/11. People started moving out of the neighborhood, and the Lower East Side, and then Lower East Side started becoming like this hipster, crowd, or people moving in, and
So
we
money
started
starts
taking.
flowing in, right? Money starts flowing in, and you're still like the poor guy left on the street, right? And you're kind
Yep.
of feeling like, what the hell do I do with all these? It was an
Well,
opportunity,
I was making money. I was selling crack back then. I was making a few $100 a day, maybe sometimes 1,000 a day.
right?
Selling crack. But the margins changed. I was selling a gram of crack for $50. Now I'm selling a gram of coke for 100, and now I don't have to deal with somebody making it hot, coming up to me looking like they're addicted. I was standing on the corner, and now I'm dealing with Wall Street professionals, judges,
Right.
lawyers, that are contacting me. And we started this whole delivery service. And we ran a whole 24-hour delivery service. We started off on foot, bike, whatever, transportation, cabs, whatever we could
Jesus.
do to make this delivery service
On
work. And
horse
then
at one point, right?
that was just, yeah, we sell drugs in a horse and carriage, but
How many people can say that?
yeah, in Central Park. But yeah, no, yeah, I mean, and then we started getting cars, and then we started moving on up. We At one point we had over 20 drivers, 2 different shifts, dispatchers, people that bagged up. It was a whole crazy. At first and foremost, it was just me and my partner doing everything. And
Right.
as the demand grew, we just took all our friends that were hanging out in the corner with us, and they became our trusted workers.
Was the coke coming in from Colombia? Like, do you know?
Uh, yeah, I mean, everything comes from
Ivan?
down there.
Yeah.
Everything comes from Bolivia, Peru. Basically like South America.
The reason I ask is because actually, like a couple weeks ago, I had the guy that was in Colombia and he caught Pablo Escobar.
Yeah,
You watch the show Narcos?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Steve Murphy, like the
That's
the actual
crazy.
detective, he was telling. So I'm now getting two completely different sides of like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
spectrum. Like I had this guy that caught Pablo Escobar, and I had the guy
That's
that was
crazy.
dealing his stuff. Or well, he died in the early '90s. I don't even know
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
were.
I was not.
It was a different generation.
I started messing around with coke in like '97. So he was already gone.
Yeah,
But
but
there
didn't stop.
was.
The coke epidemic didn't end when he died. It's just like it went
Uh,
to another. You know.
I mean, it's still out there.
Yeah. Right.
It's never gonna die out. And I think definitely the people that worked under him kept operating, or his competitors kept operating. and all that stuff, was came to the States, so most of the time it was crossing from like the Mexican border, but for us, we were getting it from the Caribbean, so they it's easier to send into Mexico and the Caribbean, and then then people take the risk to bring it over here. You know, usually it's not coming straight from Colombia. Like that. People don't do that anymore like that.
You talked about technology and how the old school days with not you don't even have a screen on your phone probably.
Yeah,
Do you think today it would be like it's harder to do it with all the tracking and technology, or do you think it's easier with just like all
way
the different
easier.
resources? Oh, it's easier. You think it's
Way
easier?
way easier. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you have these like hidden uh, messaging apps. You know what I mean? Like you have all this stuff that people can't really track. That you could
Right.
be really incognito and operate in. So like you have this whole huge underground black market that
Right.
it's and you see it. Well, I don't know if you're in New York, but like in New York, like cops are not really doing anything anymore. Like back in the
Yeah, I heard
day.
it's bad. I heard it's bad over there. It's getting
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If everybody says the crime wave is coming up, yes, it's maybe ticking up a little bit, but it's not that crazy. I mean, I've seen it way worse before, and yeah, I mean, right now it's like the cops ain't really doing anything, and harassing people like that. Back then was just like you have like a sliver of fucking of a joint, and you're they're taking you down like a SWAT team. You know what I mean? Like it was just crazy.
Here's what I don't get. Yeah, I've heard you say this before in other interviews, but then you also have a story where you're dealing on a horse.
Yeah.
So like at some points they don't care, in some areas of the city they don't care, or like how does that work? Because like how the hell do you get away with dealing on a horse for like multiple hours? You said in like prime rush hour New York.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different neighborhoods,
They were
So
okay,
yeah, so we operated. I born and raised in the Lower East Side, so like over here was extremely over policed. As we grew up, I was being stopped by cops. I don't know, 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, like just to go to the bodega. I'm being put on the wall and being
for no
checked
reason, just
for
come
no
up to you.
reason. Just like you look suspicious. You got something on you. I used to have like nothing on me and just walking, and it is what it is. But that was the reality that and basically in New York there was 7 neighborhoods that made up around 75% of the whole New York State prison population. Only 7 neighborhoods that were extremely over policed. But, if we were getting a horse and carriage in Central Park, like there was, the cops over there are helping you, look for directions, so like,
Wild.
and then we stopped operating like, yes, we kept operating on the Lower East Side and doing stuff more incognito. But back then when I was hustling and dealing, like, when I was a kid and I started off, everything was operating in a corner. So everybody stood on a corner. So you looked like, you were up to no good. Like
Right.
you see like 5, 20 guys, in a corner smoking weed, hanging out, and, you know, the cops are jumping on you, and now that's not happening anymore.
It's tragic. Talk to me about like the kind of volume you were doing, and you call this the Uber for Coke in some interviews. Give me like a an average month, an average week. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're making $5 million in revenue, and so we were selling a kilo a week. And off a kilo, we're making about 100 grams, and so that's the basic math. A gram for 100. Sometimes again, like pretty much like 95 with deals that we were cut and stuff like that. We never cut our product. It was straight raw, and that's how we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, how did that you go from being extremely poor to having this absurd amount of money? What was that like on you? Like was that a shock? What were you kind of the imposter syndrome? Did you what were you thinking at the time when that money started coming in?
Imposter. I don't know. I don't think I've ever had an imposter syndrome, but I It was pretty crazy. I mean, it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. You know, a lot of girls, a lot of partying, a lot of smoking weed. I mean, I smoked like a half a pound every 2 weeks. Like I was just
Jesus.
like bugging out and just hanging out. I mean, it was just like I could do whatever the hell I wanted, and nobody was gonna stop me. And
Right.
I guess the imposter syndrome was like I felt like I was never gonna get caught, because
Right.
I was not really touching anything. Everything was already operating itself, and all I'm doing is just collecting money. So it was, it was crazy.
Once you got more hands off, so you're doing less work, but you're making more money. You're like, damn, this is crazy. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Were you laundering? Or you said you were buying stupid shit. Like, were you ever trying to figure out a good laundering system?
I should have. I should have, but I didn't. I don't know. I was a kid. I was like
Yeah.
not thinking.
Where's the
Like,
guy there to take you under the wing to show you more of the ropes? Like, where's the old veteran in the game that's like, hey, young buck, let me,
so I did have an OG that tried to school me, and that schooled me in the beginning. He helped me, it was somebody that retired and did his own thing, and it is what it is. But when I got to that level, that's when I was like selling crack. But then when I got to like a crazier level, like nobody was around there. There was no real guidance. It was just me figuring it out, and then I felt important. I felt like I had power. I felt
yeah, kids around the block were looking up to you.
exactly. And when you have people like idolizing you, you coming in. I had like one car was just crazy. I had a 1993 Cadillac Fleetwood with 22-inch gold spinner
Damn.
rims and pearl white seats.
That's just flat out dumb. I love it. That's just
Yeah. I had like the loudest. I had like
a mink coat.
5, 6 TVs in it, and the loudest speaker. It's one of those cars that you drive down the street and every alarm goes off because
Fuck.
and so that's how I rode. My car was featured in the Dub magazine. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, the Dub.
You don't want to be featured in magazines, bro. Like that's
but it was crazy, man. It was crazy.
It's when you look back at this time, there's a part of you that does it miss it? Do you like, I'm sure you get asked that a lot because you have to retell the story every time, and it's like if someone's listening to it and you're like romanticizing it too much, it gives off like the wrong vibe, right?
Yeah, I don't miss it anymore. I don't miss it anymore. I do romance because it was like it was a fun time. Like I'm not gonna like bullshit you and be like, nah, like I had crazy fun. It was me and my friends just doing whatever the hell we wanted, doing dumb shit. But I don't miss it because I don't know. I'm in a way better place right now. Like I don't need to go back to the streets. I'm making money. I have a family. Like I love being home with my wife and my kid. Like that's
Right.
that's fun.
And you don't want the kids to be in go down a similar route.
Yeah, I definitely don't. And I have a 14-year-old who's going to be 15 now, and I definitely don't. One of my biggest fears is him going down that route. But at the end of the day, like I can't be over him. Watching him. A kid is going to do what they're going to do, and we just gotta respect the decisions and try to be a great example. And I feel like he's taken my example and like really just seen a different light. He's seen me like in prison, and
right. He's seen you at your lowest and at your highest.
Yeah.
How did we get caught? How does you're doing 2 mil at 19, driving a fancy car with a mink coat? I mean, I feel like I kind of know the answer a little bit, but
well, so yeah, greediness and people telling, and so one of my dispatchers decided to like try to steal customers away from me. And we found out he started a new phone behind our back, and so we shut the phones off, took the phones away from him, and then he disappeared. I'm not saying like we got rid of him, but he left, he ran, and which is crazy. Like we actually like went after him, and he jumped in the back of a cop car.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, it was a cab. Sorry, a cab.
Cab,
But
yeah.
while he was in the cab, he called the cops, and then the cops
Damn.
came, and then they started searching us, and it's just crazy. And
Is that the
so,
first arrest? Is that?
no. My first arrest happened when I was 13 years old. For
Holy shit.
selling weed on the streets. But yeah, no, that we didn't even get arrested. They searched us. They said that somebody called them and said that we had a gun, and we didn't have anything on us, and so they searched us to let us go. But that phone that he had started, behind our back, we took that over and we took it away, and so that phone was being tapped by federal agents, and so as the phone kept ringing, we kept sending people to different destinations. So I think there was about 40 direct sales, so all our drivers were using, we thinking that he stole all our customers from this phone. We had 7 cell phones. We kept sending them, to different spots that this person was call or these people were calling on,
Right.
and then not knowing
That was tapped the whole time.
that it was being tapped. And then at the end of the day, when they came to raid us, they started confiscating. They started trapping every driver. So they were calling me. So at this time, I had no dispatcher. I was like answering all the phones. I didn't trust anybody. So I'm sending my drivers out. They're making deliveries. Then they were getting caught one at a time, and then one of the drivers basically, told them exactly where everything was, and then I just entered the stash house because none of the drivers were picking up. So I'm like, fuck, I got like 30 people on the queue waiting to get deliveries. And I'm like, I'm going to just go to the stash house, grab the stuff. So I go up to the stash house, grab 100 bags of Coke, and then go back
Jesus.
downstairs.
Yeah.
And as I go downstairs, the DEA was just ready to ram in the door. And
And now you got the shit on you.
well, they didn't even find 100 bags of Coke. They basically cuffed me. They brought me upstairs, and they were like, "Hey, where's all the shit at?" And I was like, "I don't know what the fuck you talking about." And they exactly went to the stash where like I had so many pairs of Jordans. I had like a kilo and a half, and all bagged
Wow.
up. It's about 150 grand on the street, and yeah, and they went in there and just opened it up, and they were like, "We know everything. You ain't got to tell us anything." So I was like, "All right, somebody definitely told," and they took the work, and they brought me down to the precinct, and that's when they stripped me naked, and they found 100 more bags of coke.
Fuck.
Yeah.
You said you were, at one point, they were driving you like to the precinct, and there was like your car. They
Yeah,
pulled up
yeah,
with your car on the side,
yeah,
like just
yeah.
to taunt you.
They I had a BMW M3, and I was driving so they had me like in an undercover minivan with one detective, and I was sitting in the back, and they like pull up right next to me with the top down, so I had like the convertible hardtop, and
Damn.
they're like blasting the music going down the highway next to me, and then I get to the precinct, this other
Yo, the government's the biggest gangster. Like that's that. If
yeah,
there's ever a quote more fittable for the situation, that's the real
yeah.
gangsters.
I go into the precinct and everybody starts clapping. It's like, we got him. It's over.
Shit. So
That
you've been
was
on
it.
their radar for a while, like,
Yeah, they had about a year investigation on me. Yeah.
and that phone. If you just got rid of that phone, that one phone from the 7, you lose 1/7 of your business potentially for a bit.
Yep.
This good conversation might not even be happening.
Yep.
That's fucking wild.
But it is what it is.
It's life. Yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course. And
I
then,
wouldn't be in the position I'm in right
of
now. No.
course, of course. So you get arrested. What are your thoughts in jail? What do you have? You're screwed. You're thinking about your time. You got a lawyer. What's going through your
Yeah,
mind?
I mean, I'm in a cell, and I'm thinking it's over. Because I know the law. I know that 3-time felon is my third felony on my record. That it's going to be over. And I was facing 15 to life. They were trying to hit me with like Kingpin charges.
Yeah, what does that mean? Sorry, you've said that many times. What defines a kingpin?
So basically, a certain amount of drugs being sold, um, or the amount of money that you got caught with, and then it's a conspiracy. So like I conspired to set this whole organization up. So it's like I don't know how to
Head
describe
honcho. You're the El Chapo, fucking the
basically,
boss, the don.
when you see these movies or whatever, and you see the back of the precinct where they have a picture on top, and so basically on top of the chart, and then you have like other
Yeah.
pictures as lieutenants and all this stuff, whatever it is. That's they put me on the top, and
Shit.
so yeah. So I was facing 15 to life. My lawyer said he could, the best deal he could do was like 12 years with 5 parole. And I was like, if that's the minimum guideline sentence, I was gonna take it. And then I got very lucky. I got 7 years with 5 parole, due to the drug sentencing laws changing, because I was supposed to have automatic life behind my sentence. Back then, when anybody that got caught with over 2 ounces of coke, you getting life, whether it's 3 to life, 5 to life, 10 to life. So you're serving life on parole. And so I was facing, this long time, and due to the I don't know if you know about New York politics, but back then Governor Spitzer was involved with a scandal. He cheated on his wife with a prostitute, and then he
No
got
shock there. No
yeah,
shock.
yeah, he got impeached, and then
Yeah.
that saved my life. Believe it
Holy
or
shit. Are
not.
you serious?
Yeah, that because the lieutenant governor came in. The first change that he did was the Rockefeller law, and this is our first black, and he was blind. He reformed the Rockefeller law, and then the minimum guidelines on that. And so once that got changed, I went to court. I'm thinking, my lawyer didn't know that they were going to offer me this, and then I got 7 years, and I said guilty right away. I was
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm not playing no more games, like I'll take it that shit. So
That's 7 years with the potential with good behavior to get out early, right? Is that
yep, yep.
damn?
Well,
Yeah.
the potential to get out early was not even a option. That came about due to the other laws being changed. So basically, like there was a program called Shock, and so anytime you're incarcerated for the first time for any nonviolent offense, you're granted this program, which is like it's prison, but it's 6 months of like military boot camp. Like ex-Marines turn correctional officers. They beat the fuck out of you. They try to knock your head in.
Those are
And
the
so,
options. That's rough. Fuck.
but you save 3 years of your sentence, and back then you only could get it if you were in prison for the first time. And so if you had multiple offenses, you had strikes out, and so back then they changed it while I was incarcerated, that I could get it a second, third time, multiple times. And so I after 3 years, I applied, and got in again and came home early.
You talked before in an interview about acid. Was that? Did you take acid before the judge on the 7 year sentence?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
How'd that happen?
this is when I got arrested. So the cops, the DEA, they basically like they take your cards away, or I had like, I don't know, credit cards, bank accounts, all this stuff. They shut
Freeze
that
all that
down,
shit. Yeah.
and they passed me back my wallet, and in my wallet I had a picture of my son, and then I had a little zipper on the side, and in that little zipper I stuck my finger in, and there was like 10 pieces of paper, and it's like a strip of acid, and so I pop it out, and I remember my co-defendants, my drivers were in different cells, and I'm like, yo, they gave me some acid, and we used to call it funny papers. So I'm like, yo, they gave me the funny papers, and they're like, yo, pass me one, pass me one. I'm like, fuck that, and so I took all 10, and I was tripping balls. So basically, like, they took me to the interrogation room. The DA, the district attorney, is there, and I'm like, yo, I'm so fucked up. I'm laughing at them. They were like, you're facing a life sentence. We're gonna give you like 24 years. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll take the whole 24. I don't give a fuck. And so
Yeah, just a
that's
terrible play.
crazy.
You just didn't give a you like you said, you didn't give a fuck. You thought that was the end, right?
Yeah,
So you're like, if you're gonna go down, might as well
I'm
go
gonna
down
go down.
tripping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, after that, you're going to prison. You said you did some time in Rikers as well.
Yeah, I've been in Rikers multiple times, and so Rikers basically is a holding jail. It's the New York City
Yeah.
jail, and so after while you're in awaiting your sentence, or you're pleading guilty, you're in jail sitting in Rikers Island. So um,
Is
yeah,
it like the movies? I mean, I know it's a dumb question to ask, but
um,
how bad is it?
it could be bad, depending on different units that you're in, So there's units that are a little bit more calmer, but most of the time, like, people are fighting over phones, and that the gangs are run the shit, So like
Right.
there's you got the black gangs, you got the Spanish gangs, but basically like Blood and
Right.
Crips don't really. They have a separate Crip house that. Basically, they're in protective custody because the majority of Rikers Island is all Blood and Spanish gangs. So
When you go into a place like that, do you have like a plan in mind? Is something that you're trying to do, trying to stay off the radar? Because I imagine it's really hard to not get an additional sentence to your sentence because there's all kinds of shit that happens in prison. You have to protect yourself, all that stuff.
yeah, but you can't really avoid it. Especially if you're in there and in a cell block with 30 guys.
Right.
Shit. I was sitting in Rikers for a year. Waiting my sentence. So like. Yeah, you can't avoid it. I mean, I got into multiple fights, been in lockdowns, shit's gone down,
You're
so
feared
like,
for your life in there. Obviously, you're the head honcho of your operation, so you know a lot of shit, and maybe someone comes in there or has a
uh,
hit on you or something like that.
no,
No.
never like no hits on me. Definitely, aware and fear, you have, guys that have, big, shanks, you know what I mean? And they're ready to stab people. And I've seen people get stabbed and all that stuff. Like, and then if you have an altercation with them, they're gonna take out their shank and try to stab you.
Right.
So like, situations like that you're like alert. Your anxiety starts boiling up. And you've got to be ready to bring your own shank to the fight. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. How do you, mentally? What's your state at when you're in fucking prison? Like, when's the moment that you're thinking, holy fuck, like 7 years is bad, but there's a way out of here? Like, what is the epiphany? I guess if
uh, what do you mean? I don't
like
know. I don't know if there's an epiphany.
well, I mean, like, you're in there for 7 years. So, like,
Yeah,
your mindset is probably like, fuck, like, I'm screwed. But in another sense, you just avoided a life sentence for 25.
yeah.
So, like, what's your game plan? Like, are you thinking about, what to do next? Or are you just like, fuck, I'm in here? Like, I'm mentally like, if I'm in my room for 10 minutes, like, or an hour, 2 hours, like it starts adding up. Like I need to go outside, I need to do something. But like,
Yeah.
how are you dealing with all that shit mentally?
I mean, you adapt, man.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world. I think like uh, people during COVID, they were stressed out. They were in their apartment, blah blah blah. I'm like, yo, this is not like jail,
Right.
So like, and people complained that they felt that way, but in there, you just gotta you gotta deal with the situation at hand. You have no choice. At least over here, you have a choice, but over there you got to dwell in and figure it out, and there's times where you feel suffocated when I was in cells that were over 100 degrees. You're sweating, you're walking in there naked, there's no ventilation. It's horrible.
It's literal hell on earth.
Yeah, yeah,
That's fucked.
yeah. But
Um, yeah, but you're through it. The positive side here. When is the business idea? When you're going there, you're a little overweight. When did all that stuff start turning around?
yeah, I went into prison, and after Rikers Island, I was sent upstate, and physicians in there told me my cholesterol levels were through the roof, and I was surprised because I never really had health issues growing up. I was just a kid, always messing around in the streets, doing what I did, but I didn't ever get a checkup. I never went to the doctor when I was in the streets. Like something that we, as people that are outside, never really are concerned with their own health. And so it was the first time I saw a physician in years, and they told me my cholesterol levels was so dangerous that I could probably die of a heart attack within 5. And
What's your weight and height at that point? You remember?
I was 231, and I was only 5'8". So
Okay.
I was not that crazy, but internally, my everything was messed up. All I did in the street was smoke, eat fried food, and drink. I was drinking a lot, I was smoking a lot, and I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes. And then I'm just eating street food, and so I was bad, and so I took that to heart, and I remember going back to my cell and starting working out, and felt frustrated that it was too hard to work out, and so I was like, fuck this shit, and uh, but I went back to my prison cell, and I like I started contemplating and was like, all right, I'm going to start doing something. And I go out to the prison yard and I start working out obsessively. I was like literally putting a garbage bag under my clothes, running with, my jacket on, and just started sweating and sweating, and just kept that determination of just working out, and like, for me, it was like a sense of, I don't know, escape and freedom in a sense, because it was that time that I meditated on myself, and I didn't have to deal with anybody, jail politics or the gangs and all this shit. You know what I mean? I was just out in the yard by myself writing it, and there was nobody else doing it. It was like, it was embarrassing to do because I was the only one doing it, and
I
I
mean, that's what
also,
else can you do, right? Like that's in prison. That's your workout, you read.
yeah,
Like what? There's literally how many activities can you do, right?
yeah, yeah. And so I I basically, went, kept working out, and I managed to lose over 70 pounds in 6 months. And
How much? 70 pounds?
yeah, 71 pounds. Yeah.
Holy shit! Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
fucking
I,
wild.
I went down to like 160, even lower than that at one point. I was like 158, but I was too skinny.
Well, at least you weren't fat Forrest Gump. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
Well, how's the food in there?
Shit sucks, man. You got fucking mystery meat. That's what we called it, because we always thought like, yo, they're killing any type of bird and throwing it in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's like a fucking, they take this bag, right, and it's like a bag of sauce and meat, and then they put it in these like huge boiling kettles, and they boil the food there, and it's like goulash just
It's
dripping
gloop,
on a
glup, like these.
yeah, and it's just like it's you see fucking seasoning in there, but it doesn't taste like shit. It tastes it
It
doesn't.
just looks like seasoning, which is the worst
Yeah,
part.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yo, what the fuck is that? What are we really eating? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's pieces of celery and carrots, but you can't taste it. You know, and so um, yeah, I mean, it's disgusting, man. I hope I never have to eat that shit ever again. But
How do
you
you
know,
get fucking yeah? How do you get to your shape with that shit?
uh, I just eat the protein, man. And so
Just
like
protein.
I
Yeah.
was basically like, I super low carbs, and just like high in protein. So I just ate the meat, and then you got commissary. So I was like, eating mostly in commissary, a, a, a lot of pescatarian diet and chicken. Basically, I was like, you know,
Sorry, it's a stupid
doing
question. How does commissary work? How much like allowance are you allowed? Now, like how much food can you have? Shit like that.
So you're allowed to spend, I forgot, it's like 150 every 2 weeks. But you could have, I don't know, you could have whatever amount in your account.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You could send a friend who's incarcerated $5,000, $10,000, and they can have it in their account, but they can't spend all that money at once, and you're not going to spend all that money at once because food rots. So you,
What a
you
fucking wild system that like you can have money from the outside to get you a slightly better time on. It's
yeah.
such an American system. Like it's so fucking industry and capitalist. Like
Yeah, and all those companies that are privatizing and sending all these food
right.
products are going in there and making
And
money.
then they have slave labor in there and another fucking
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy.
it's so crazy, so crazy.
How do you look at other systems in the world compared to America's and some of those more progressive countries? Do you like those? Do you think those are more positive for the
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, statistically, they work. They have way lower recidivism rates. They set people up to succeed, not fail, like over here. Like in prison over here now, as the criminal justice topic has been like a sexy topic. Back then, 10 years ago, there was no programs. There was nobody going in there giving you a trade or anything like that, or something that could
right,
actually
giving you an
transition
actual
you.
second chance?
Transition you to do something right. You know what I mean? It was, and there was like a college program. And I joined a college program while I was incarcerated, but that took me 2.5 years to get in to,
What was the
like
program for?
to get college credits.
College credits, yeah. Any
Yeah,
specific class like business and stuff, or what were you?
they only had psychology, like
Psychology.
different type of psychology majors and stuff like that. So I like learned the DSMs and
What's a
dual
DSM? Sorry.
diagnostic statistical manual. So whatever, um, there's different versions. I think they're in like the fifth version, but basically, if it tells you what the addiction level is, so it's
Right, right.
what psychiatrists use to diagnose you. So basically, I think it says like if you have like 9 cups of coffee then per day, you're addicted to caffeine.
Right, right.
So things of that nature.
We're trying to psychoanalyze yourself a little bit?
No, I was not
No?
but I did psychoanalyze other people though.
Yeah.
I mean, you see crazy people in there, man. And, I'm not
Right.
gonna call them crazy. Everybody has their own
Sure.
issues, but you see some wild shit, man.
Where does the Conbody idea come from? You were doing well for yourself, you lost some weight. How do we turn that into a
Yeah,
business?
one of the inmates in there, came up to me and he basically like, said, I wanna start working out with you, and I was like, okay, he was a cool dude, and I helped him lose over 100 pounds. He was like 330, same height as me, really bad shape, and so he lost a lot of weight, and at the same time he brought his other friends to work out with me, and then I brought one of my other friends, and we started like a whole camaraderie group, like just working out with each other, and that's how we did it. We just worked out together, and so I didn't think about starting a business behind this until the end of my incarceration, where I ended up in solitary confinement, and in solitary, I just started thinking about like what I really wanted to do when I came home, and
How
you
does
know,
the solitary confinement? How did you get into that?
so this officer basically put his hands on me, as I was in the medical unit. I got called down for a random drug test. I didn't even think I was going to go up down for a drug test, and I thought I was going to go see a dentist because I was on the waiting list for a dentist for 3 years or something like that. And so I'm super happy going down there, like very like excited. I had about 2 months left. I was going to be released in this early release program, and this officer says, "This is a drug test. I need to search you." And I was like, "All right, whatever." But as he's searching me, he started searching me really aggressively, and he went in between my legs. I felt uncomfortable. I twitched my waist a little bit, and he knocked me out. He punched me behind my head, and he said, "Today's not my day. Don't fuck with me." And so I got back up. I turned around on him. I didn't even approach him in an aggressive way. At least I don't think I did. I just basically turned around so could avoid another hit. And yeah, I mean he uh, he struck me down, and about a half a dozen officers pull up to the scene because he pressed the whole alarm for the whole prison. And then I ended up in solitary. They beat the crap out of me, and so now I'm facing 3 more years in prison. I'm facing my whole rest of my sentence. I'm about to lose my early release
Wait, sorry.
opportunity.
You were how many months or years were you away from release, and then that happened? And how many more additional? How much more additional time
Uh,
did you get?
I was 2 months away from my release, and then I got an extra year.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
And you're
So
obviously like your loved ones and your wife, your kids are waiting, and then
yeah, yeah. Everybody was expecting me home, in a few days, and shit didn't happen. Like it's a very devastating, feeling where you feel like you have freedom is right there. Like you could taste it. You're
right,
walking, taller. You feel like shit is over. And shit got pushed back. And at that time, I didn't. When I was in solitary confinement, I didn't know that I was only going to get an extra year. I'm thinking, this
more,
guy's saying
right?
he was saying that I was attempting to assault him. So like to get a charge like that, like it's crazy, and then I pleaded out to while I was in there, I pleaded out to like disobeying a direct order, and he said I basically they put on the ticket refusing a drug test, a whole bunch of shit, and so I pleaded out to that. I ended up doing an extra year. But when I was in solitary confinement, I was devastated. I was devastated at the fact that I couldn't I couldn't
You get out. Yeah, you were there. You're at the
get
door.
out, and so I remember like sitting in there and just thinking and pacing back and forth. And while I was there for a few hours, an officer comes up to my cell and passes me a paper pen and an envelope and through the food slot. And so I grabbed that. I started writing a letter, and I started writing a letter to my family and letting them know like, yo, I'm in this situation. I need to get the hell out of here. Like, yo, please, like, contact the what is it? I forgot what the basically Albany, and to appeal all the shit that this guy is saying,
Right, right.
and so I was telling him I needed a lawyer, blah blah blah, and so at the end of the day, I had no stamp to send out this letter with, so I was even more devastated. I had
Wait,
no
they
way.
don't provide the stamp. I don't understand. Or do you have to have this? How does that work?
You only allowed after 30 days to get a stamp,
Damn.
and so I'm like, fuck, like how can I communicate? Like I'm in a messed up situation. So
You're
I yeah
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no I and so basically I you know took that letter, threw it in the corner of my cell, and I lay down. And about a week later, my sister finds out I'm in solitary confinement because I was calling home, pretty often, and they didn't hear from me. So they called the prison up, just to see. And my sister finds out I'm in solitary, so she writes me a letter and says like, "Hey, we found out that you got into some trouble. You know, everything's gonna be okay." My sister's like really religious person, like really and like she reads the Bible every day, and I was
Like that
like
old
she,
Latin American religious, like she
yeah,
sees
yeah,
the
yeah.
Virgin Mary in her peas and stuff.
Oh no, it's real. I
That's
saw
not.
that. I saw that shit too. She pointed it out to me. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. So
Yeah.
no, but she has a very strong spiritual connection, and she writes me and says, "Yeah, hey, I want you to read Psalm 91 from the Bible," and I'm like, what the fuck? I don't need no Bible, and all you have in solitary confinement is basically your religious items, whether it's your Quran or your Bible or your Torah or whatever your religious beliefs are. That's the only thing that can be taken away. So I had this Bible early on in my incarceration. I never really opened it up. I only opened up literally like first 2-3 pages just to write my friends' phone numbers. I was thinking of coming home and selling drugs with these people again. And
Oh
so
damn, you were thinking of like just going back into your old way.
yeah, well, I at certain points, yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember, um, just writing all these connections. There's I've met like people from like the Mexican cartel, Colombians, and all this stuff while I was incarcerated. So like, I'm like, all right, I can make an easy buck doing, being the middleman. Shit, shit goes through your mind doing stuff like that, and so I wrote all these numbers down. And I remember, out of boredom, she told me to read Psalm 91. And I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to read it. I got nothing else to do. So I searched for Psalm 91 and I started reading it. And as soon as I started reading it, a stamp fell out in between my Bible and the Psalm pages. And it was a stamp that I needed to send out this letter to my family to get me out of the situation
Wow.
and to explain the whole situation. I don't know if I might have put that stamp in there, in the beginning of my sentence. I don't know. Um, but I took that as a sign of like, hope, and
Some light in this darkness.
yeah, and chills ran down my body and I felt like everything was going to be all right. So I basically sent out my letter, got assistance a little bit and got out of that cell and, ended up doing a year, and so I came home, uh, but during that cell time, like while I was in there, that's when I started reflecting on my life and really started reflecting on all the crazy shit that I've done in my life. Hurt so many people. I've done a lot, like a
Your
lot of bad
family
shit.
never turned their back at you, or they never kind of abandoned you, or they did.
They never turned their back on me, but they lost hope.
Right.
They, I basically in that cell, I was like, I'm already helping these inmates in the yard. I want to get back to society in a more positive way. So I started coming up with the concept of starting a fitness program, and I called it Conbody. And I wrote out a whole fitness 90-day workout routine, wrote out basically a book and a business plan,
Wow.
and I closed it and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I came home and I told my family about it. And I started doing it basically the second day out of prison, and started going out to the park telling people that I'm doing this workout, And so I just kept doing that shit, and like my family didn't, they thought like I was nuts, they were like, that's not going to work out. The
They're like,
only,
at least better than what he was thinking before.
yeah, but they thought I was going back to the streets, like,
Oh, really? Well,
yeah,
you said your brother at one point kind of saw you as a different person, but he also helped take care of your kids and stuff like that. So like I feel like he's such a massive part in your success story, right?
Yeah, I mean, my brother, like, I appreciate him because he was a father figure for my son. While I was
Right.
gone, he took my son out to ball games, and things that I couldn't do with him, because I was out of his life, and so I
It's
really
beautiful.
appreciate that. And it was hard, but I was dedicated. My brother didn't believe that I was gonna come home and do the right thing, because this is the ninth time I got arrested. Like,
Right.
this is.
No one want to get their hopes up.
And I don't even think it was
No?
their hopes up. It was just like, whatever.
Right.
We heard it before. Because I've came home and try to do right things before, and I'm like, nah, this shit's frustrating. Fuck this. The only person that really believed was like my mom. And like my mom was basically my first customer. And then after like a year of doing it, then my family started seeing like, all right, I'm getting my shit together. I started my company. I hired my first person, and things started taking off.
Yeah, hiring incarcerated people, that's been massively successful, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like you have had no problems with that?
I mean, absolutely, I had problems with that, but
Fuck.
I'm not gonna lie to
Yeah.
you. It's been, uh,
Roller coaster a bit?
yeah, definitely a roller coaster. At the beginning, I started a company that I was going to hire people coming out of the prison system, to do this with me, and I didn't realize that I was going to have to deal with their barriers as well, and so that became my my mission too, is like helping them get shelter, food, basic necessities,
Right. Making sure they don't slip
clothing,
up and, right? They don't go back in
and
their ways.
yeah, and just building that transparency and that community of young professionals that come to work out with us, and people that have been incarcerated, and all of us, like, having each other's backs, and just telling us, like, if there's an issue, just speak to us first and we'll figure it out together.
How do you go from, just being a small business to scaling it to the caliber and scale that you've had right now?
I mean, I think a lot of it has been like virtual, different partners. Right now we operate in three jails and prisons, across the country, working on franchising at the current moment, and so, yeah, that's where I'm taking it at.
That's
And
hype.
then, yeah, yeah.
And then,
So,
sorry, you were gonna say, and then,
yeah, and I mean, that was it. Like, the virtual was something that we've trained over 70,000 people. So, like, virtually, we're in the small studio that we had in the Lower East Side, we weren't capable of doing that. But and we've had studios in pre-pandemic in London and Midtown, and we're forced to close that, unfortunately. But I kept one in the Lower East Side, and we expanded virtually. So, made the job easier.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The one thing that I don't, one last question, we're approaching the hour mark. Conbud. I see a little bit of information on that, but I don't know what the actual business is. What's Conbud?
Yeah, so it's gonna be hopefully a dispensary. Um, and so what we're doing is we're launching a few dispensaries in the city, applying for the application, and so nobody really has application to sell marijuana, and in the city. But that's what I'm looking to do.
Kids in the back.
Yeah, yeah, and hire people that have been just as impacted on the world on drugs, to
Beautiful.
do it with me. So that's the goal.
Beautiful. I see your kids are, or I hear your kids are in the back,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
taking away your time. If you guys want to check out, Conbud, Conbody, everything, I'll leave links down below. I know you've told your story countless times to countless people, so always appreciative, of you telling it again and me asking the same question probably a
Nah,
billion
man.
times.
No worries, man. Thank you, Nelly. I appreciate you spreading the word.